This is the Speak Easy podcast, where we go behind the scenes and give you that ultimate guide to being the successfully paid speaker and author. I am your host, Altavis Pelzer, the voice coach, founder of the World Voice League, a virtual network of female speakers coming together to impact social change. With that being said, guys, I know you see the title. I know you heard this title. I know you saw this title simply because, listen, it hit on a heartstring with everything we've been going on that's been going on with us as a nation, as well as throughout the world. Listen, it's time to get back to teaching people how to care. So I'm super excited about our guest for today. Hey, Janine, how are you?
Well, Altavis, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this podcast. I'm so excited to be able to share with your audience. And it just, this topic about teaching the world to care is so important. There's so many things going on out there. We really need to, wrap our arms around this and wrap our arms around other people so that we can move forward and heal from all of this trauma.
Exactly. And one of the biggest things is I feel as though every time something happens, it's a trigger. We're reliving that very first mass shooting. We're reliving, Columbine. We're reliving, Newton. Like, we're reliving the things that have been going on in the past. Every time a new one happens, it immediately triggers what we've been through in the past. But before we jump into today's topic, Janine, let them know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get right into it.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So my background is I'm an internationally recognized grief and trauma relief specialist, and I'm a certified life, spiritual, and energetic coach, a certified calm, accepting, resilient, and empathetic care trauma practitioner, and a #1 international best-selling author. And I work with women who are suffering and stuck in grief due to trauma and support them on their journey to a fulfilling and joyful life. So my clients, they benefit from my decades of experience and my broad range of coaching and support tools, and also my empathetic nature. And I also have a blog post, and so my blog posts have garnered thousands of dedicated followers, and I'm a sought-after expert on trauma. So that's essentially what my background is, and I personally come from a background with trauma too. So yeah, I completely relate to this topic. I'm very passionate about it, and I want to help others on their healing journey.
So now let's start with your background with trauma, because I know when it comes to trauma, you have two different types of people. You have those who go through trauma and they don't want to talk about it. And then you have the ones that go through trauma and they want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Let's start off with the ones that don't want to talk about it. The ones that kind of just want to shield their eyes and kind of almost wish it away. What's the conversation that you have with those who are, they feel it, they feel the trauma, but they don't want to deal with it head on?
Yes, I've had people have spoke with that share about a little bit about their trauma. They're having a real difficult time trying to bring it up, and that's perfectly understandable. It's a scary thing because in their hearts they know they want to heal themselves. They want to get past this or find a way that they can move forward through what it is that they're feeling inside. So first off, it's really about holding that space for them so that they, it's a really sacred space to be able to communicate with somebody who's experienced trauma. And you want to be there to be of support and help them understand that there is a way through. And so that's sort of the journey that I try to help people step into. So I start out with, basically 5 steps, that I work with in my programs. But I think that there is a way to move past your grief due to trauma, and it's really about being very compassionate and loving and understanding to the people you share and talk to when they're having this type of experience. So.
And we know that, of course, with everything that's been going on recently, a big concern is triggers.
Yes.
Because right now there is no quote unquote safe space to you not hearing about what's going on, in the world, to you not hearing about things like the mass shootings that happened over this past weekend. We have social media, we have, family members checking in, we have literally, I saw people who were saying, we have a family chat, and they were just like, I need everybody to check in. If you're, from that state, I need everybody to check in, or just family in general, because you never know when someone may be traveling or something of that nature.
Right. And I can understand it, because when we hear of this in the news, and it's shocking, number one, and it's sad, and it's, all these flood of emotions kind of flow through you, and it's like, how can I help? What can I do? And it's hard, and sometimes it's even hard to have the conversation. One of the things a lot of people don't realize is 50% of all human beings in this world have experienced one form of trauma, at least. So that's a whole lot of people. So it's understandable that there could be triggered emotions that come from this, because it may, you see an experience, and your brain kind of sort of like that database, and it goes back and it looks for something it remembers and recalls. So then first and foremost is really about your self-care, and taking steps for yourself to help yourself recognize that I'm in this space where this is triggering me, and try to get to a place where you can calm that down. And sometimes it's, just take that deep breath and count to 3, and, just hold that breath for yourself. Now it may come up from the conversations you're having with other people, and it triggers you, and you're not realizing, and you're like, wow, and it may be that you may have to step away, and sometimes just moving to a point where maybe you're with somebody who's a trusted confidant, and express, this is really making me feel uncomfortable, but I want to be able to be supportive somehow. And so what it is, you want to be able to have that conversation, but know that it's in a space that that somebody supports you as you have it. And sometimes that's hard to do, because when we're in the midst of it all, a lot of emotions are flying, and everything is happening all at once. And that's perfectly understandable. It's, we're trying to move through grief, through trauma, because the trauma is very, very difficult to do, but it's possible, so I really, try to support people when they're wanting to step onto that kind of journey. So.
One of the things that you hit on was us having our own personal way of dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times people kind of try to mask it. They may go to alcohol. They may go to, some type of way to kind of calm the noise or quiet the noise as they feel as though they're doing. Mm-hmm. So having that personal set of things that you do, in an instance like this, how would you explain that to people, to, okay, that you have triggers, that you have things going on. What's your personal, I don't even know what you would call it, to be able to handle it? What's your personal toolbox to be able to handle it?
Right. Some may not be aware. Some people, is that an echo of me?
Maybe. I don't hear an echo on my end, though.
Oh, okay. I'm hearing it on my end. Yeah, it's odd. So anyway, what may happen is you're in this space, and all of a sudden you're not sure what to do. And, a lot of people just don't know what to do. And, that's why it's so important to try to reach out and get the help, to reach out. There's, as much as we, love Facebook and hate Facebook, there are wonderful groups out there that are supportive. So that's a place where you can kind of share, some of your concerns, and that with people that are like-minded and heart-centered, who really offer the encouragement and support to help you to have that conversation. Now, I wanted to make sure I get, there was another aspect to your question. I just wanted to make sure I got that because I was hearing that echo. So,
oh, and they said it in the comments, the coping mechanism. That's what it was. For whatever reason, it would not come out of my mouth at all. But their own personal coping mechanism to be able to deal with, situations. I know that for me personally, my daughter has had panic attacks in the past, and so we had to come up with a set things, for her to do in order for her to get through that. For her, it was, okay, essential oils, sit in one spot, calm your breathing, think about where you are, just that small process can mean a whole lot in the middle of dealing with that trauma.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And those are great tools when somebody's able to share that with that person. But there are so many people out there that are not even sure where to turn to. And, you can go to the internet and Google trauma and like, whoa, a whole host of stuff comes up, and it's
that's scary too.
It's overwhelming almost. You got your your major government sites and all these different major organizations, and so that it's like, okay, now what, how can we simplify this? And it's sort of when I did my Breaking the Silence Summit, and you were one of my amazing speakers, it was the reason that I felt it was necessary to start showing that there are tools out there. There are all these different healing modalities out there that people are not aware of. So they may not know that, yes, therapy is great, talk therapy is great, but it may not be enough for that person because everybody is uniquely individual in terms of their healing path. So something else might work out. So they might get with a different kind of practitioner. Maybe, I had an equine therapy was another person that I had speak on that. And that was, because sometimes you may just be the person who just needs to get outdoors, and that connection and the horse and their presence and being present. And that all these different people have this way of helping you stay in the present moment, because sometimes it gets very confusing because yes, the event happened, but what can I do about it now? And that's, that's where, when I work with, my program on moving past grief due to trauma, is I work through these 5 steps. It's working with the remembering your why, and then there's doing the bare minimum and giving yourself grace and giving yourself the space and planning to succeed. So it's all those kind of things that you and there, there's a lot of layers within each of those steps in terms of helping you move forward. So yeah.
And so I love our studio audience. Someone just said, this is a great topic because back to school anxiety is a huge thing for kids, yes, preteens, and growing concern that kids cannot cope with it.
Right. So it's, I look at that and, in terms of preparing your child, it's also getting the awareness of what's there, what kind of support's already available for you. Within the school, have your plan of action, and and also more importantly, take steps to help calm the child. The percentage is not high, although what's going on is very high and very traumatic. And so yes, a younger child may not understand that, and that could leave them in a place where they're scared in school. And so you want to help comfort that child and help them understand what they can do, and do it in a of course a delicate way, because you don't want to scare younger ones and that type of situation. As they get older, they're it's just age appropriate type guidance. So yeah.
Most definitely. I love that. Age appropriate guidance is definitely important. Now, when we talked about, teaching the world to care stands for something different when it comes to your business and what it is that you do. Could you explain that to the audience a little bit?
Sure. Care actually comes from a certification program I had gone through, and it was done by Dr. Allison Jackson, and she is an amazing doctor out there who has, not only her personal experience, but, just created this program that not only, for us that are business owners and entrepreneurs, many of us who are in this field also experience trauma ourselves. So there's such a thing called vicarious trauma. And vicarious trauma isn't just because of, you being a business entrepreneur. Vicarious trauma is, I witnessed this event, and, so it's there. And, so we have these experiences that we need to know what it is that we can do. So it's called trauma-informed care. And there's a lot of information out there on the internet, but I'm seeing that more and more schools are actually incorporating that into their programs and raising the awareness of, and this is how we raise the awareness, how to care for each other and what to do in these instances. And so I think the more and more we get that message out, the better, in terms of knowing that there's a place to go. So when a child is in this situation, they're in a bullying situation, they know what to do, where to go, how to get the kind of support. And more importantly, all the right people throughout the system, not only just in the schools, but the whole social structure of the system. So when we go back to care, and that's really about, it's really about a calm and accepting, resilient, and empathetic way to approach trauma. And, so it's very important that we remain calm, because we need to be able to take those steps, be in the moment. And sometimes we just have to take that big, deep breath. And when it's, as far as the accepting aspect, there are so many things to learn about what trauma does to an individual. And so it's all about that awareness. And so accept that this is what happens, but become informed, and then when it's resilient, what steps can I take to be resilient through this? So whether you're a business owner or you're, an individual, private individual out there in the world, wanting to learn more about how I can help, the more we educate ourselves on this stuff, the better off we are as a community. And when we sort of come from the perspective of caring for another, that has a ripple effect. It just takes an iota of a handful of people to help spread the message, and all of a sudden, it creates this, like the law of attraction. It starts gravitating, and then there's a shift in perspective and attitude, and then maybe we start young. We start in those younger years. That child has a chance of moving, through life in not such a scary way. So they know that they're fully supported. So yeah.
Let's go back. There was something that you stated that I think a lot of people don't really put it into context, that this is a real thing, and that was the secondary trauma.
Yes.
Because we forget that, we see the initial person is having the trauma or dealing with the trauma. And we may even say that the people who are in that first general surrounding area may be someone who had the trauma, but we forget about the secondary trauma. And could you go into a little more detail about that?
Okay, the vicarious aspect of the trauma, yes. You can be impacted by the trauma of others, because oftentimes we may not know what to say or do, even though we mean well. So there's that aspect of it. Then there's also, in terms of, you actually get traumatized by, becoming aware of this experience. This is traumatic for some people, because you don't, when you're looking at statistics where 50% of the population has had some form of trauma, that's going to trigger that flight fright in your, or the fight. I always mix the two up. in your brain. And so all of a sudden these flood of emotions come through, because it's only natural to want to protect ourselves, protect our loved ones. And, so there isn't always an aspect of that happens. So, you can say, like in a school, when they have like a shooting in a school and stuff like that, it's very traumatic for the school, and many of the students and the faculty may not have been involved, but it has an impact on them. It has an impact on the community, and as the world finds out about it, it has an impact on anybody who learned about that experience. And so then it's, what steps can we take, and become more trauma informed is so critical. So we know what next steps we can do. We know that we can be supportive and caring and compassionate. It's that is so critical. It's and I think the more that happens, and from people who have heart-centered businesses, this is what it is it's you're expanding your heart. And and when we do that in a community, it creates, even though it's hard, it creates something where we come together, because that's what's happened is we became disconnected from who we really are. We're all human beings here in this spiritual experience, all connecting with each other. And sometimes we forget that, and it's sad that happens. But when we have people in a community who are being advocates for this, there goes back to that ripple effect. And it's put that pebble in the water, and watch how those circles grow. And what it is we've lost touch with having our circles of community, circles of connectedness. So, and it starts with little and gets bigger, and just that's I look at it that way. And and the more we do that, the more we step into that, the better chance that we can shift things. So
that is so very important. I know, as someone who has children, having conversations like these were not always easy, but they were definitely necessary. It opened up their minds and their, it opened up, what they were supposed to do when they were dealing with other people who may be going through trauma. And I think I go back to a conversation I had with my oldest daughter, who back in the 6th grade, she, had talked to someone. She was just talking to someone, and she had told them about her being molested. And her opening up that conversation, the other young lady let her know that she was a cutter. And my daughter she came home and she was just like, "Mom, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that." And I think a lot of times we, being on the outside, that is how we feel. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that.
right.
And that can create anxiety in itself.
Yeah, it's sad when that happens. We want that child to know that they have a place to go. We want to be able to provide them the tools and the support that they need to help move through this. And of course, awareness for their family, and not, and it all depends on what kind of situation that they're in. Maybe it is a traumatic home for that child. And, so then it's, where do I go outside of that? And, this is where it gets back to getting this information out and really honing in on the fact we have a society today that is very traumatized. And we have children out there that need to know that they have they need this support. They need to know where to go. And one thing is, every human being, the one thing that we want most, besides being able to create experience and love, is to be heard. And sometimes that's difficult to do. So if we channel in that opportunity, that space, create those spaces so that we can be heard, then there's a chance for us to, those of us who are in the caring community, to be able to come in there and help that individual and know that they have an opportunity to move through it, no matter what age you are, because we can layer this, all these different age groups, and and into adulthood, but one of the things too is a lot of times something may have happened so long ago as a child, and then woof, you go into your adult here and you're like, hey, I'm a hardworking person. I'm going to work mega hours. I'm pleasing my boss. I'm doing this. And all of a sudden the whole world falls apart, and it's like, what's going on? And so much has to do with what happened to you in your childhood experience. And a lot of people don't even know that. They don't realize that it's not only the emotional and the psychological, it's the physical. When you look at the disease out in the world and all the, the chronic diseases from heart and obesity and just, everything, just all the chronic kind of illnesses to, morbidity. People die early. Why? Because they had carried this trauma, this stress in their being. And it's, and it's like, how do you release that? How do you get the relief from that? But most people don't even realize it just might have something to do with what happened when you were a child. And it's always leaving that sliver of chance. It might be a little bit different than you think. Just that sliver. And sometimes that little sliver, it opens the doors for you in ways you never even expected. And then all of a sudden, wow, and then you can be like me, become a coach and to help people just like myself, which is my passion, so yeah.
It's interesting. One of the young ladies who is in our studio audience she works in the field with social workers and things of that area. And she talked about, we as being in the professional field, the speakers, the authors, the entrepreneurs, the coaches, that are working with individuals in this area, a lot of times we may be going through things in our own household. We're going through things in our own homes. And, we're going out in the world attempting to help other people. And then when we get home, it's kind of almost like chaos. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it first starts with self-care. And first off, you're aware of the situation. Okay, we know that. So what am I doing in ways of self-care? Then again, it goes back to those 5 steps of overcoming, because, you might be grieving that I'm in this situation that's just so uncontrollable, yet I have this heart that wants to be part of this. And so with that, it just goes back to that, remembering your why, doing the bare minimum, give yourself grace, give yourself space, and plan to succeed. So, it's, everything we do in life can be, there's things that can be very difficult, and, and that could be wide ranging. So, we have all these emotions that come up. So when you're in that situation, there could be anger about what's going on at home, and frustration and anxiety. Is this ever going to change? And how am I going to get past it? So recognizing, yes, you're in that situation, but you can change it. You can step into your healing path, because there's nothing wrong with continuing your business as long as you work on the support you need so that you can shine. You can shine out there. And it's, sometimes coming into the business, you learn that, wow, I didn't realize I had all this going on. And then that's where, there's great programs like the CARE program that I did that helped me become more aware and understand and what steps I could take and how I could help my community. And, and that's what changes things, and so in my own life, I was able to change a lot. I had difficult relationships in the past, and, and it was a challenge. It was like, wow, this is just utter chaos, and I don't want to live this way anymore. But, I took these steps and I helped myself move forward, and I want to be able to do the same for all of my clients that are out there. So, potential people who want to, get their help,
I love it. I love it. Self-care is so very important. And I think a lot of times we don't hit on it as much as we should, because we're saying that we'll take time out later. We always put, ourselves on the back burner. We put ourselves last on the to-do list because we think that, we have to do for everybody else first. And if we don't, then that, nobody else will be able to do it, or those types of things. And we got to sometimes just take that step back. Okay, maybe you should take a vacation. Maybe you should go to a spa. Maybe you should just sit at home and read, or, taking that time to really sit down and say, I have to come outside of this in order to clear my head, and I have to do it on a consistent basis.
Yes. Yeah, there's so many ways to self-care. A lot of people, that's the immediate, type of, those obvious areas and that. But sometimes it's just stop, breathe. Just pause and just breathe and close your eyes and be in that space. And it's funny because I love it when it comes to the breath, because there's the in breath and there's that out breath, and there's that momentary split second, and that's where you're tapping into your inner knowing, that intuition about things. So when you do that, you get into that space, and then you start making decisions that are helpful for you. Yeah.
So this episode has been absolutely phenomenal. I want to ask you this question I ask all my guests before they leave. And it's, in this journey, do you see yourself as having any blunders, any moments or decisions that you've made that you can look back now and say, okay, maybe that wasn't the best choice. I'm glad I learned from it, but that wasn't the best choice in that moment.
Now, are you talking about business or in my personal life? Like the whole life?
Well, I mean, if you want to share personal, you can. I'm not going to stop you.
Well, I can tell you the one thing was, I didn't get onto my healing journey until I turned 50. I'm 57. So, boom, I carried this heavy weight of pain. I mean, I had, my background is very extensive, and, people can go on my website and see my bio and learn about a little bit about my background. But it was, just moving forward. And sometimes I made decisions that didn't make sense. I stayed in jobs that didn't make sense, but I always knew that there was a part of me. I wanted to be a writer. I've always dreamed of that as a little girl. That was always my dream. And I always wanted to tell my story. And I always wanted to tell my story in a way that could help other people. So to me, it was about trying, and then once I stepped on that, all of a sudden, everything started blossoming. The whole world started expanding, and I met some amazing people along the way that helped me get through. But it took me a long time. I was so clouded in the negativity of, sort of like the woe is me, and I can't, how am I going to, the same thing over, and I would tell the same story over and over again in a negative way. But now I can tell my story in a positive way, and how it actually helped me transform myself and become the person I am today, that, that I can, pour my heart out and be there for people in almost any way I can. It means the world to me to be able to do that. So
y'all heard that right. There's no excuses. She said that she had that shift at 50.
Yeah.
No excuses. Because we always put that in context of, I'm too old to get started, or I'm too old to make that shift into doing, this business instead of going to a job. And you got to understand that it's always going to come down to doing what's best for you.
Yeah. I can tell you in that, it was what was best. For the longest time, I kept saying, I got to save for retirement. I got to save for retirement. That was more like trying to say, I got to wait till tomorrow. I got to wait till tomorrow. And I was, in denial of the fact that I was in excruciating pain, and did not see it. And, and I was like, wow, what am I doing to myself? It was like, so I had to, move forward, and it was all of a sudden, I got in this situation where I have to use all of my retirement to get through. And trust, to me, that's a big deal, trust in something higher than yourself, that you're going to get through it, because you will. Everything I've ever tried to do, that I wanted to do, everything I ever desired to do has happened. And when you sit back and you look at your life, and it's like, okay, think of those instances where when you actually thought that way and whatever it is you desired actually happened. Head that direction. That's the path you want to go because it feels good. Because if it's here, it's sticky. That the negative side of things, and it's like, whew, when I did that, the whole world opened up. So, and I want to.
Yeah. No, you don't have to plan it all out. Don't think that you got to have the next 20 years planned out. No, sometimes that's not what you need at
Even if
all.
it's baby steps are perfect.
Exactly.
So it's like whatever it is that moves you in that direction. Whatever step you take.
I love it. Oh my goodness, I love it. So Janine, let them know how they can reach out to you for more information. Let them know about the book as well.
Yeah. Well, first off, I was in a book collaborative because I know you do that yourself, and I think those are amazing things to be on because they really can help your business take off. And I when I got into this, I was like, wow, this really shifted things. So this book is, wrote a chapter on the moving past grief due to trauma. And so when I talk about those 5 steps, that's what's in that book. So it's what every mom needs to know. And so it was in that book. Now, prior to that, I had wrote my own book, and it was Creating Heaven Wherever I Am. And so the interesting thing about that was always my dream. That was always sort of like my dream title. And for some reason, I just got off my butt and decided to do it. And it was just a small little book. I was in a writing program at Jack Canfield, and so I got that book out, and I really wanted, and I started thinking about making it into a series. And so then I took that book and wrote another book, and in other words, the subtitles were different, but the main title remained the same. So when I did that, it was an amazing thing. So anyway, when it comes to writing these books, it's really all about wanting to get my message out there to a lot of people. And so these books, they allow me to break down my steps into, especially that the one thing every mom needs to know. That chapter, it allowed me to break down in 5 easy steps so I could reach more people and help more people. And that is so important to me. And that's why I wanted to break things down easily. And then I created the Stop Suffering Now program, which is my signature program. And it goes into a lot more detail. And, so I'm really, think this is what's so helpful, especially when you're in a business and you're trying to get the message out. And the same thing with Creating Heaven wherever I am. It's really all about moving forward, and so it's whatever place that you're in now. It's really about starting to move forward so that you can create the heaven from there. You can create your own heaven, so, and I want that in everything I do in life, and I want that to be able to share that with everybody. So, yeah.
Which it speaks volumes, because when we talk about, teaching the world to care, it starts with us.
Exactly.
Each and every one of you that is listening to this particular episode, it starts with you. It starts with you. It starts in your home. It starts with your children and in your relationships, and it just spreads out. It's that ripple effect that Janine was speaking about earlier, that if you just go ahead and touch one and connect with one, then that one goes and connects with another one, and it just continues to go. Those of you that have gone through some trauma, or you feel as though you want to talk to someone, please make sure that you reach out to Janine. I am someone who I always want you to understand that you're not alone.
Yes.
You're not alone in this journey. You're not alone in dealing with trauma. You're not alone in how you feel about the situations that are going on right now or that have gone on in your past. But sometimes you need a person to hear you out that does not have a direct connection to you. They are not somebody who knows you or knows the details, because it allows you to be in a safe space. So if you need help, if you've been going through trauma, if you've gone through trauma and you have not talked about it, please, please, please make sure that you reach out to Janine. This
Sure.
is, my PSA, my public service announcement, because what we see going on right now in the world is a lot of people who are going through trauma who have not gotten the help that they need, who have not felt like they had somebody to talk to or someone to confide in.
Right. Now, are you fine if I share my
Sure.
website and, some information about me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So people can reach me at www.janininaus.com, and the spelling is Janine, and the last name is Naus, and that's N as in Nancy, AUS as in Sam. And you can find me on Facebook with my name, Janine Naus, or Twitter, it's Janine Naus _Naus, or Janine _Naus. There we go. And I'm also on Instagram, which is Janine _Naus. And I also have a Bridge to Healing community on Facebook. It's a private community, and that's where this is specifically for women. And but in time, I'm going to create a community for men too. And it's a private community where you can interact and communicate with others who have had similar trauma experiences. And here you can learn how to end the suffering and be in harmony with yourself. And there's lots of supportive resources. I had 64 summits, Breaking the Silence summit speakers. And, of course, Altavis is one of them. And they come in there and we do teachings and stuff and try to offer some support for people so we know that we're not alone. So you were making me think about that. We're not alone, not alone. We're here for you.
Definitely. And so you have that support. Those of you that have been following us for any length of time, you know that I appreciate you guys. Why? Because without the Speak Easy podcast listeners, there is no Speak Easy podcast. And so we appreciate you for that. Make sure that you let us know how this particular episode resonated with you. You can reach out to us, contacts@altavistpelzer.com, and let us know personally, or you can just leave us a comment on any one of the podcasting platforms. With that being said, I appreciate you again. My name is Altavis Pelzer, and I am the voice coach, founder of the World Voice League, coming to you as the host of the Speak Easy podcast, guys. And until next time, don't forget to press it out. See ya.